2022, Nikola founder and former CEO Trevor Milton was charged with securities and wire fraud. The government alleged that Milton lied about almost all aspects of the business in an attempt to trick retail investors to buy Nikola's stock. He was convicted, and in December of 2023, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Milton has maintained his innocence and appealed his conviction. He is out on bail pending an appeal. As of the time of recording this video, it does not appear that Milton has spent a single day in prison. He even created a website called Trevor Milton.com where he professes his innocence and explains the appeals process. In January of 2025, Milton published a video on Instagram after a long hiatus from social media. In the video, he says he was thrown under the bus. He now wants to clear his name and promises to tell us what really happened at Nikola. But at least in his first video, he didn't provide any substantive information. He just promised to tell the truth of what happened at some indefinite point to future. A few days later, he posted a second video to Instagram. In this video, he reacts to an influencer who talks about Nikola's fraud. In particular, the infamous incident where Nikola rolled a truck down a hill and tilted the camera to make it look like the truck was driving itself. Milton tries to debunk this fake truck narrative by showing videos of Nikola trucks driving on roads. In the description, he says, quote, "One of the many bogus claims against Nikola was that her trucks weren't real. Fact check, they were real all along." The first Nikola truck made its delivery in 2019, well ahead of going public, unquote. The video in question is this one titled Nikola One in Motion, which was published in 2017, years before Nikola went public. In September of 2020, the short-selling firm Hindenburg Research published a report accusing Nikola of being in near-total fraud. Amongst their many allegations against the company, they said the Nikola One in Motion video was fake. The truck was rolling down a hill. The video was edited to make it look like it was driving across flat ground. There's no dispute that the truck was rolling down a hill. Shortly after the Hindenburg report, Nikola released a response. Nikola never stated his truck was driving under its own propulsion in the video. Nikola described the truck as in motion. It was never described as under its own propulsion. Trying to defend yourself with semantic technicalities is never a good look. In his first Instagram post, somebody commented, "Why did you roll the truck down the hill?" Milton responds by stating that all the drivetrain components were there at the Nikola One unveiling. It could have drove. If the truck really could have driven at the time, it's unclear why they decided to roll it down a hill instead. Milton goes on to explain that the Nikola in Motion video was published in 2017, 3 years before the company went public. By the time they went public, they already had trucks on the road. Milton disagrees with the premise that investors were defrauded, as the video in question was already ancient history by the time they went public. It is true that Nikola delivered a working hydrogen truck to Anheuser-Busch in 2019. They presumably did not have a working truck in 2017, which is why they rolled it down the hill. While Milton is smugly debunking the haters, it's important to remember that he was convicted in a court of law by a jury of his peers. The rolling truck was just one of many allegations against him. For example, Milton publicly stated that Nikola had built its Badger pickup truck from the ground up and that it was a real truck, fully functioning inside and outside. In real, Nikola purchased a few Ford F-150 pickup trucks and used their chassis and bodies to construct the Badger prototypes. It was also not fully functioning, as it lacked critical components such as airbags and an operable HVAC system. In March of 2020, Milton stated, quote, "Up until Nikola came in the market, hydrogen was around $16 a kilogram, US dollars. Now, Nikola's producing it well below $4 a kilogram," unquote. In fact, Nikola had never produced its own hydrogen. Lacked the permits and equipment needed to do so. At the time Milton made this false statement, Nikola was actually buying hydrogen from a third-party supplier for $16 a kilogram. If we went through all the allegations, we would be here all day. Today, Trevor Milton has failed to convincingly debunk a single one. It's now been more than 4 years since Nikola was exposed as a fraud. Yet surprisingly, the company is still operating and it continues to have over 1,000 employees. In January of 2024, almost exactly 1 year ago, we published this video exclaiming our amazement at how the company had managed to stay afloat for so long. Since then, its share price has fallen a further 90%, bringing the total loss to more than 99%. Yet the company still exists and is still listed on the Nasdaq. In this video, we'll review the recent developments at Nikola and try to predict how much longer the company can survive. After Nikola's fraud was exposed, Trevor Milton steps down. The company went through a few CEOs, eventually settled on Steve Jersky, a former GM executive. In December of 2021, Nikola made its first delivery of a battery electric semi-truck to a logistics company in California. One of the main factors preventing widespread adoption of zero-emission trucks is the high cost. According to a recent study by MIT, the total cost of ownership of a conventional diesel semi-truck is $2 million over 15 years. This includes everything from the purchase price, fuel cost, interest expense, insurance, etc. The total cost of ownership of a battery electric truck is $2.7 million. With the battery electric truck, you save money on fuel as electricity is cheaper than diesel. But the upfront cost of the truck is way higher and you'll have to replace the battery after 8 years. This more than offsets the fuel cost savings. The hydrogen truck has the highest total cost of ownership at $3 million. Not only is the upfront purchase price the highest, but hydrogen fuel is also significantly more expensive than diesel. Nikola is focused primarily on selling trucks in California. California has an incentive scheme where you can get $120,000 of subsidies when you purchase an electric truck. This brings electric trucks closer to parity with diesel, but they're still more expensive. Throughout 2022 and 2023, Nikola ramped up production and sold a couple hundred electric trucks. In June of 2020-3, disasters struck when a Nikola semi-truck spontaneously caught fire in the parking lot of their Arizona production facility. The cause of the fire was most likely a coolant leak in one of the battery packs. In August, Nikola recalled all of its battery electric trucks to fix the issue, and it's a good thing they did because in September, there was yet another fire also at their Arizona facility. This was a disaster for Nikola. They stopped selling battery electric semi-trucks. In the third quarter of 2023, they delivered 0 trucks to customers. They even had to buy back 7 trucks from dealerships that previously purchased them. The fires only impacted Nikola battery electric semi-trucks. The company was also working on developing a hydrogen-powered truck. In the fourth quarter of 2023, they began their first deliveries of hydrogen trucks. Again, they're focusing mostly on the California market. Thanks to government subsidies, California has the most developed hydrogen refueling infrastructure of any state in the U.S. by far. Nikola is also working on building hydrogen refueling stations of its own that customers can use. Finally, California subsidies for hydrogen trucks are even more generous in electric trucks. Trucking companies that buy a Nikola hydrogen truck can get $240,000 of subsidies from the state. Remember that MIT study we looked at earlier? Over 15 years, the total cost of ownership of a hydrogen truck is $3 million. This is $800,000 more expensive than a diesel truck. Remember that in addition to selling the trucks, Nikola also built a number of hydrogen refueling stations. There's reason to believe that Nikola is effectively subsidizing their customers by selling hydrogen fuel below their own cost. In the most recent quarter, Nikola sold 88 hydrogen trucks and generated $25 million of revenue. However, this includes negative $8 million of revenue from battery electric trucks that were returned due to the previously announced recall. So the actual revenue they generated from the sale of hydrogen trucks was $33 million or $375,000 per truck. The cost of revenue for truck sales was $82 million or about $930,000 per truck. So, Nikola is losing more than $500,000 for each truck it sells. During the quarter, Nikola generated $334,000 of service and other revenue. This includes the sale of hydrogen fuel. The associated cost of revenue was $5 million. So, it appears that Nikola is selling hydrogen at significantly below cost. Let's go back to that MIT study which shows that the total cost of ownership of a hydrogen truck is $3 million over 15 years compared to just $2 million for a diesel truck. The MIT study assumed that a hydrogen truck cost $450,000. Nikola only sells his trucks for $375,000 and the buyer gets a $240,000 subsidy. So the buyer only pays $135,000 net. The MIT study also assumes that the buyer finances the truck and needs to pay interest. They assume the buyer will pay $290,000 of interest expense over 15 years. A lower upfront cost means lower interest expense as well. Finally, the MIT study assumes that the hydrogen truck will incur $300,000 of additional fuel cost above what a diesel truck would pay, as hydrogen is more expensive than diesel. California has one of the highest diesel taxes in the country. As of the time of recording this video, diesel cost $4.62 per gallon in California, which is 30% greater than the U.S. average, and as we discussed earlier, Nikola appears to be selling its hydrogen fuel to its customers at below cost. Once you take into account the government subsidies and if Nikola is subsidizing the fuel, it's plausible that hydrogen trucks may have reached cost parity with diesel trucks in California. Indeed, over the past 12 months, Nikola has sold 235 hydrogen semi-trucks. The problem is that Nikola is selling the trucks at well below its own production cost. In the most recent quarter, Nikola incurred a gross loss of more than $500,000 for each truck is sold. Nikola incurs an operating loss of more than $100 million per quarter because they make a gross loss on truck they sell. If they ramp up production, they'll just lose even more money. Since the beginning of 2021, Nikola's cumulatively burned about $2 billion. Nikola raised about $750 million from its back merger in 2020. But this money quickly ran out. Since the third quarter of 2021, Nikola has raised over $1.6 billion by issuing shares and convertible bonds. It's pretty shocking that a company can raise so much money from investors even after it was exposed as a near-total fraud. As a result of the capital raises, Nikola's share count has ballooned. Since 2021, the number of shares outstanding has increased more than five-fold. This has caused something of a death spiral. The supply of new shares puts downward pressure on the share price. A lower share price means Nikola has to issue a greater number of shares to fund its losses, thereby accelerating the dilution. Today, Nikola's shares have lost more than 99% of their value. Despite all the challenges facing the company, there are a core of retail investors who still believe in Nikola. The subreddit r/Nikola Corporation has 10,000 members and remains pretty active to this day. The members of the subreddit follow the company in great detail. They get excited every time Nikola announces a new sale or any other news that could be construed as favorable. These mostly novice retail investors have contributed over $1 billion to the company. This has allowed Nikola to survive far past its natural expiration date. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. What do you think about Nikola? Let us know in the comment section below. As always, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you in the next one. Wall Street Millennial, signing out.